Political firestorm over surveillance has Republicans in quite a pickle. Now, on one hand, they have been critical of the Obama administration for potentially spying on Trump staffers. We know that is bad and it is wrong. Now, on the other hand, later this year, those same Republicans will have to vote to extend the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA, a law that allows the feds to snoop, and the Republicans have long supported. Now, is there a chance lawmakers will see the error of their ways? Joining me now is Jim Harper, Vice President of the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Jim, welcome back.
Good to be with you, Kennedy.
So let's talk about this a little bit. It's interesting because now it's almost as though the left is saying, hey, it's okay to make these incidental collections. Susan Rice was doing her job, where essentially there are civil liberties advocates in the Senate like Ron Wyden and Rand Paul who have said all along for several years now that this sort of collection oversteps any reasonable bounds. What do you say?
Well, incidental collection turns out to not be so incidental. It's a real big loophole for the three-letter agencies to drive their surveillance through. Let's face it, surveillance is surveillance, and this process might better be dealt with using warrants rather than just making information available to government officials when they ask for it, and that's the case right now.
Well, and the issue is that now there are so many people who have access to that information. So when there is an American who is caught up in what should be overseas surveillance, then their name can be, they can be identified, and then their identity can be made known to the dozen plus various other agencies who now have access to the information because of some rules changes by President Obama. But it is so easy to overstep the bounds and abuse this power and use it as a political weapon. And do you think that is what we have seen in the Susan Rice case?
I think it's very likely that it's happened or it will happen. The evidence that it happened in the Susan Rice case is pretty thin, maybe even thinner than the hair on top of my head. But the likelihood, though, given the availability, the easy availability of this information to a lot of people in a lot of places in the government, it makes it very likely that it has been used for political purposes or could be. That's why Congress should close the loophole when it goes to reassess Section 702, as the law is called, later this year. The chances that they will? Not very good.
No, it's not very good because as Trey Gowdy, and we've seen many times in the House, he's obviously from the great state of South Carolina, he was speaking to FBI Director James Comey saying, you and I both need Section 702. We want this to function correctly, but there's obviously something problematic here. What will it take for Republicans to join some of their civil libertarians within the party and some liberty-leaning Democrats to say, we have to close this stuff? This is all part of the mass spying problem that was exposed in 2013. And it appears that the government has just gotten better at it.
Republicans are going to have to come home to their roots, their constitutional roots, recognizing that chairmen and chairwomen of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees should work for their constituents and not be working for the intelligence community or the White House. They need to come home to their constitutional roots in terms of the Fourth Amendment. That is requiring that searches and seizures, including of data and communications, require a warrant. That's something that Rand Paul in the Senate has suggested for 702, and I think this experience makes it clear that that's pretty good advice.
Yeah, and I think the contents of your conversations and your phone and devices, I think those all constitute effects as they were seen and laid out in the Fourth Amendment.
Absolutely right. They serve the same purpose as papers did at the time of the founding. They are arguable effects. That's the things that you have around you when you go about your life. So this stuff should be subject to constitutional protections. When I make a call overseas, that doesn't mean all bets are off and that the government can collect this information, the contents of my communications, and unmask it at high levels just for the asking. There needs to be good, strong 702 reform. The chances of it, though, happening are pretty slim. You'll likely see something happening in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and by the way, with Michael Flynn and some of the revelations about his case, speaking with Sergei Kislyak, according to the timeline, Kislyak was actually in the United States. So he should not have been subjected to that sort of FISA surveillance that is allowed under that law. So it's still there's still a lot of explaining that has to be done exactly how Flynn was caught up in a domestic conversation, even if it was with a foreign actor. Jim Harper, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Very good. Coming up, have mattresses finally become sentient and started attacking motorcycles? We've got compelling answers. In the topical storm, that is next, along with your hate mail. Yay.